Class 9, let's start today's class, and in today's class we are going to start chapter number 4, India in 6th century BC, the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. So let's start today's class. Okay, let's talk about the literary sources. In literary sources we are going to read about the Jatakas and the Triptalikas, 12 Angas, archaeological sources. So these are the literary sources, written sources through which we come to know about the two religious movements, that is Jainism and Buddhism. So Buddhist sacred literature, that was written in Pali, Sanskrit and Prakrit language and mixed Sanskrit languages, right? So now these languages they used to write. Now number 1 is Jatakas. Jatakas, the Jataka tales which is written in Pali language deal with the previous birth of Lord Buddha. So not only that, it also throw light on the political, economic and social conditions during that period, during that time, right? Now next is the Triptalikas. So Triptalikas is what? It's a 3 baskets which are written in which language? Pali language. So these 3 books are Sutta Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, and the third book is Vinaya Pitaka. So let's talk about the Sutta Pitaka. The Pitaka, this is the book which contains the teachings and the sayings of Lord Buddha, and it also tells about the origin of universe and unnatural character of the caste system, the Buddhist ideas of karma, action, rebirth and nirvana also found in this book, and that book name is Sutta Pitaka. Now next is Abhidhamma Pitaka, which presents a philosophical interpretation of doctrines contained the Sutta Pitaka. So it is written mostly in the form of question and answers, right? Now next is Vinaya Pitaka, which contains the rules of the guidance of the Buddhist monks and nuns. So guidance means what to do, what not to do. That is told in this is written in this Vinaya Pitaka, right? So, and it gives a list of sins and offenses likely to be committed by the members of the Buddhist Sangha and the punishment they deserved. So these are the 3 baskets which are written in Pali language. So 3 baskets means 3 books written in Pali language. Now next we have 12 Angas. 12 Angas, so this 12 Angas or 12 books are compiled by the different Jain religious council where they have collected and compiled the teachings of Lord Mahavira and Jain religious literature into, and that is compiled into 12 different Angas, 12 different books. So that contains, that 12 Angas contain the rules of Jain monks and teachings of Jain Tirthankara or the spiritual gurus, right? And these are the works written in Ardha Magadhi language, and this is also divided into 3 different parts, that is Upangas, Kirnas and Sutras are the other text. Now next we have archaeological sources. According to this archaeological sources, we come to know the messages and the teachings of Lord Buddha, and the different archaeological sources like Sarnath Pillar and Stupa at Sachi. Not only that, a Jain temple at Shravana Belgola in Karnataka. These are the archaeological sources which help to reconstruct the 2 religious reforms movements of 6th century BC, that is rise of Jainism and Buddhism. So now next we have the Gandhara or the Gandhara school, which produced a number of fine sculptures of Lord Buddha and Buddhist towers, and many statues of Buddha resemble the Greek gods also. Now come to the political history of India in 6th century BC. So in this, we know that the Aryan settlements, so they had slowly started growing into a large territories which were known as Janpadas, and the more powerful and bigger territories were converted into Mahajanpadas. And from the Buddhist texts, we come to know about that there were 16 Mahajanpadas, 16 large and bigger powerful territories were there in the late 7th and the early 6th centuries before the Christian era, right? So there were monarchies as well as republics also. So these territories were, some were monarchies and some were republics. The 4 important kingdoms were Kosala, Avanti, Vatsa and Magad. So Magad became, there were many reasons that Magad became or grew into very powerful kingdoms, very powerful kingdom among those kingdoms. And there are the several reasons also, and those several reasons are Magad had very fertile plains, right? And iron played a very great important role in that phase, because iron and Magad territories, that territory was full of iron, right? So iron did play an important role during that period. Not only that, Magad had a very large standing army, and it was the very first to employ the elephants in warfare. So they were the first who introduced elephants in the war. So war elephants could cross rivers and go through jungles with ease. So these were the reasons. These were the reason why Magad became a very powerful kingdom, and the powerful king, that Bimbisara of that time, became very powerful and very efficient leader, we can say, ruler. But Bimbisara lost his life at the hands of his son Ajatashatru. His son killed him, and his wife Kosala Devi died of that grief. So Ajatashatru, from that time, the ruler of Magad, who became the ruler of Magad, and he ruled from 492 BC to 460 BC. Now next topic is causes which favor the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. Now let's talk about the different reasons, various reasons for the rise of Buddhism and Jainism. The first reason is ritualistic Vedic religion. So in this ritualistic Vedic religion, the early Aryans, they were very simple, and they performed very simple ceremonies, and they performed very simple ceremonies, as well as they used to do very simple rituals, right? But the simple religion of the early Aryans was replaced by meaningless rituals and complicated ceremonies, right? Like, for example, simple sacrifices had been replaced by animal sacrifices, right? And it was the rites and the ceremonies were too costly, very expensive for the ordinary people to perform, as well as they became discontent with the religious beliefs and practices of that age. So people of that age during 6th century, they had lost faith in those rituals and rites, or that kind of performance or rituals and ritualistic Vedic religion, right? Okay, now next is killing of animals to perform sacrifices. The simple sacrifices of early Vedic period were discarded and replaced by expensive yajanas. A large number of animals had to be killed for the ceremonial sacrifices and yajanas. right? A new agricultural economy based on the iron plow needed all the more animal to plow the peasants' fields also, and people therefore resented such meaningless sacrifices, which required the discriminate slaughter of animals to appease the gods. So people started what they started killing animals, or slaughtering animals to appease gods. So these type of rituals and meaningless rituals and complicated ceremonies, killing of animals, animal sacrifices had been started or introduced, right? Now next is supremacy of the priestly class. Okay, now with the introduction of the complicated rituals and ceremonies, the priestly class like Brahmins, they occupied a very important position in the society, right? Because each and every ceremony and your rituals had been performed by the Brahmins only, right? That is why they occupied a very prominent position in the society, and we can say the position of supremacy in the society. So the priest dominated the life of man from birth to death, right? So people turned against these type of rituals and rites and ceremonies, as well as they also opposed those Brahmins, those priestly class, right? Because of their supremacy in society. Why they were opposed by the people? Because people did not like the supremacy of Brahmins. So supremacy of Brahmins means they occupied very prominent position, and they started the Brahmins, the priestly class, they started dominating the life of man. Clear? And not only that, they also they were very rigid. The Brahmins, they were very rigid, and they started started introducing meaningless rituals, rites, sacrifices of animals unnecessarily. So these type of rituals and strict rigid ceremonies were not liked by the people, and poor and farmers, poor people, they were not able to perform or not able to afford that type of rituals. That is why they opposed against their supremacy, right? Their presence or their supremacy in society. Okay, now next is the caste system. Okay, in the due course, the caste system became very rigid. So caste system became very rigid means they were very strict about the low caste and a high caste, right? So that means so the caste system was, caste distinction was also divided according to the birth, not by their professions, right? So that practice became very rigid, and the high caste people, they started ill treating with the low caste people. So low caste people or poor people were ill treated by the high caste people. So high caste people means noble people, or your noble people, or your priestly class, right? So they dominated over the society. So the institution of untouchability also became very prevalent, right? Untouchability, untouchables. So the people were known by untouchables, and that practice was known by untouchability. So that was very much prevalent that time. And so the intellectuals, the educated and reformers naturally resented such unjust social practices and distinctions among the people. That is why the Buddhist Sangha and associations or a council that was therefore thrown upon to all, open to all equality. So they opposed the Buddhist Sangha, the council, they opposed this type of caste distinctions, and they thrown open to all equality, right? Now next is difficult Vedic language. So this is also one of the reason for the rise of Buddhism and Jainism, that the Vedic literature had been written in the Sanskrit language, which was beyond the comprehensions of the common people. That means the common people could not understand the language, Sanskrit language, right? So many could not understand the Vedic mantras recited by the Brahmin priest. So that's in the difficult Vedic language. Now next is efforts of religious reformers. So the efforts of religious reformers, like the holy men like Vardhaman Mahavira and Gautam Buddha, so they led very simple life, and because of their teachings and their very simple teachings, their simple language attracted many people of that time, right? Not only that, the royal patronage also, they supported these holy men, right? So the unrest against the evils that had crept into the Vedic religion and society led to the rise of number of intellectuals and holy men. They questioned the efficacy of meaningless rites and supremacy of the priestly class. They opposed many times they opposed the Brahmanical order, the holy men like Gautam Buddha and Vardhaman Mahavira and many other social reformers. They opposed, and they oftenly questioned regarding the meaningless rituals and rites and supremacy of priestly class. So the simple life teachings of these holy men like Vardhaman Mahavira and Gautam Buddha attracted by many who were longing to be liberated from the oppressions of the Brahmanical order. So that the teachings, simple teachings of Mahavira, simple teachings of Gautam Buddha, many people attracted towards them, right? And people started inclined towards them. Now next is, we'll talk about the holy men. That's Vardhaman, Mahavira and Jainism. So let's start. So it was believed that there were 24 Tirthankaras in the Jain religion or Jain traditions. According to the Jain traditions, the teachings of Jainism were the work of 24 Tirthankaras, or Tirthankaras means spiritual gurus, right? The first one was Rishabh, and also known by Adinath, and the last two Tirthankaras were Parshavnath and Mahavira, right? Okay, now we'll discuss about Mahavira or Mahavir. So Mahavira's original name was Vardhaman, and he was born at Kundagrama, now known as Bashukunda, in the modern district of Muzaffarnagar in Bihar. So he was his birthplace was Bihar, Muzaffarnagar. No one is certain about his date of birth, but historians believe that he was born around 599 BC, right? His father, Siddhartha, was the head of the Kshatriya clan. So he belonged to Kshatriya clan. It's a clan, C-L-A-N, clan, Kshatriya clan, and his mother, Trishula, was a Lichavi princess, right? Sister of Chetaka, a ruler of Vishali. Since Chetaka's daughter Chelana was married to Bimbisara, Mahavira was related to the members of eminent dynasty of Magad. So he directly, indirectly related to the Magad dynasty, right? Though Vardhaman Mahavira introduced in all branches of knowledge, he showed more interest in spiritual matters. He had knowledge of every subject, but he had more interest in spiritual matters, right? He was married to a beautiful princess, Yashoda, and a daughter was born to them, right? So he had a daughter also. When he was 20 years old, after the death of his parents, Vardhaman renounced all worldly pleasures. He left his home in search of truth. He lived the life of an ascetic and practiced rigorous penance and deep meditation. In the 13th year of his life, or as an ascetic, he attained true knowledge, which was known as Kevalya Jana. That means Vardhaman came to be known as Mahavira, right? Mahavir or Mahavira, which is the meaning of Mahavira is the great hero. So great hero means Jina, the conqueror of the world, or conqueror of the of self, and his followers came to be known as Jain, and the religion was came to be known as Jainism, right? So when he was only 20 years, he left his, after the death of his parents, he left all worldly pleasures. He left his house, home, wife, daughter, everything he left, and he renounced all worldly pleasures. He left his home in search of truth, and he lived in life as an ascetic and practiced rigorous penance and deep meditation. In the 13th year of his life, he attained true knowledge, and from that he came to be known as Jina, the conqueror of self. After attaining that true knowledge, he started moving place to place for the traveling from one place to another for preaching his doctrines, his teachings, right? And he was also supported by the royal patronage of Magad, Avanti and Kosala, and he was very much supported by the Magad rulers, Bimbisara and Ajat Shatru, right? So he attained Nirvana. Nirvana means he was died at the age of 72 years at Pava in Patna district, right? Now next is teachings of Mahavira and main doctrines of Jain. The first teaching of Mahavira is the 5 vows. First thing he taught us is that ahimsa. So ahimsa is what? Not to hurt any living creatures. So Mahavira laid great emphasis on the principle of ahimsa, right? So not only that, he said that all creatures, animals, plants, they have life, right? So no harm should be caused to any living creatures. Beside ahimsa, the Jains were required to take vows of not stealing, not telling a lie, not stealing, and not non-attachment to the worldly things, as well as brahmacharya, right? So brahmacharya means, so next is no belief in God. That means Mahavira as well as Gautam Buddha, both, they did not believe in presence of or existence of God, because they were silent about it. They were silent about the God, right? So what they believed, like they did not believe in the existence of God, and they had no faith in the presence of, or the theory that God has God created the world. But instead of that, according to them, man is responsible for his own destiny. Clear? So he meant to say that if someone is suffering from, or if someone is very unhappy, sad, and suffering from penance, then that is, he meant to say that that is because of his own deeds, right? So, and emancipation from suffering does not depend on any outside power. Man can escape from his misery, unhappiness, and sadness through leading a life of renunciations. So renunciation means Renunciation means accepting those 5 vows and and leaving all those worldly pleasures like desire, like wishes. So these type of worldly pleasures should be renounced, right? To get rid of kind of sadness, unhappiness, or misery. So he meant to say, if someone wants to live a happy life, so he or she should leave all the worldly pleasures and should lead a very simple life, right? Okay, now next is nirvana or salvation. So Mahavira accepted the current theories of karma, and rebirth. The main aim of one's life is to attain salvations, and man can be liberated from the cycle of birth and rebirth by following the three ratna. Three ratna means 3 gems, and that 3 gems are right faith, right conduct, and right knowledge. So one can attain nirvana, or man can be liberated, or can escape, or can be liberated from the cycle of birth and rebirth by the following conducts. So those conducts are, number one is right faith, number 2 is right knowledge, and third is right faith, right conduct, and right knowledge, right? So the right conduct require taking the 5 vows, which we have already discussed. Okay, now next teaching of Mahavira is that he rejected all the meaningless rituals and rites and ceremonies, right? So that is also one of the teachings of Mahavira. Next is to treat people on an equal basis and opposition to the caste system. Okay, now Mahavira believed in equality of all living or human beings, right? So he preached that there should be no discrimination on the grounds of caste. So he encouraged women also, and he favored the freedom of women and allowed them to join Jain Sangha, Jain council. Right now, next is believe in penance. So believe in penance means the Jains believe in penance, and they were directed to live strict life, right? And to starve oneself to death was regarded as a great virtue. Now next is factors that led to the growth of Jainism. So what are those factors which led to the rise of Jainism? So very first is the teachings of Mahavira were very simple. Their language was very simple and understood by all the common people, right? And secondly, Mahavira left behind the organized religious order of the Jain sages for the propagation of the doctrines. And there was a support of royal patronage also, because we came to know that the royal patronage and the rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, they very much supported this Jain religion, right? And not only that, the missionary zeal of the Jain Munis helped to spread Jainism all over the country. So these were the factors which led to the rise of and spread of Jainism, growth of Jainism. Right now, next is causes of decline of Jainism. The first setback is that the strict principles of penance, because many times in this Jain religion, I told you about the penance. So he had great emphasis, he focused on penance. So penance means what? It's a starve oneself to death, was regarded as a great virtue according to the Jain, according to the Mahavira. But common people, they could not strictly follow his principles, right? And mainly this penance. So that is the cause for the decline of Jainism. And also written here, many hesitated to follow, adopt that principles, as well as common people found it very difficult to follow the severe and strict principles, right, of penance, penance and austerity, we can say, advocated by Mahavira. Second reason is this Mahavira, the religion introduced by Mahavira, that is Jainism, so that the people got splitted into two groups. One is Svetambar and second one is Digambars. So they itself got divided into two groups. That's the one of the reason for the decline of Jainism. Third is the revival of Brahmanical order or Brahmanism was a very great setback to Jainism, right? And also the loss of royal patronage is the reason or cause for the decline of Jainism. Okay, now next is the two sects. We'll talk about the two groups of Jainism: Jain Digambars and Jain Svetambars. Both the groups of Jainism, Svetambars and Digambars, they believed in a great penance, and they believed in simple life, leading simple life and strict lives. But only the difference between these two sects was that the Digambars, they do not wear, they remain nude, or they do not wear clothes, right? They do not even keep even a small piece of cloth. And whereas Svetambar, they wear white clothes. So that's only the difference between these two sects, right? Okay, now next is impact of Jainism on Indian culture and society. A major portion of Jain literature was written in Prakrit language, and we know that Mahavira, he preached in mixed dialect, which was known as Ardha Magadhi. So that his teachings was written in Ardha Magadhi language, and that was compiled in 12 books, and that 12 books were known as 12 Angas, right? So in that way, there was a growth of vernacular languages also, right? So not only that, Jainism also made an impact on a literature. So Jain also made an great impact on the literature of the South, that is the Kannada literature. Now next is art and architecture. So Jains erected many stupas, like I can give you the examples, like Dilwara temple at Mount, Jain temple at Mount Abu, and Ellora caves in Maharashtra, also Gomateshwar statue at Shravan Belgola in Karnataka. So these are the several examples of Jain temples and statues. These stupas and these Jain temples were the best specimens of the Jain literature, which had a great impact on the Indian culture and Indian society. So now next we have the religion topic. The Jains were first to make ahimsa, that means non-violence, not to hurt any living creatures, right, as a rule of life. So such ideals continue to affect our life from generation to generation. So we know how Gandhi gave back to Indians the pride of in their own culture. He stressed the importance of satya and ahimsa in all our actions. So we can say the Jains were the first to adopt this principles of ahimsa, and that was carried by our national father Mahatma Gandhi, and he stressed the importance of satya and ahimsa in all our actions. Right now, next is social impact and the welfare of mankind. The teachings of Mahavira led his followers to pay more attention to humanitarian services. So from his teachings we come to know that he had a great emphasis on the focused on the humanitarian services or work. So humanitarian services or work means from his teachings, from his first teaching, that the five vows. So we from that we come to know that we should not tell a lie, and we should not steal, and we should be very strict and should lead a very simple life, right? And not only that, we should adopt a simple life, and should have non-attachment to the worldly things, worldly pleasures, and brahmacharya. Only that, the humanitarian services, for this they have opened many schools, and for the humanitarian services they had or they have opened many hospitals also, and they build a number of rooms and a number of rest houses, inns we can say, for the benefit of travelers, for the travelers to take rest there, right? Okay. So these were the impacts of Jain religion on the Indian society and Indian cultures, right? Okay, now children, here we'll stop this chapter, and Buddhism and Lord Gautam Buddha, this we have already done in assignment number 6. If you remember, we have already done this part of this chapter in assignment number 6. So here we have completed this chapter. Now in the next video I'll soon start chapter number 5, the Mauryan Empire. So till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye.